us go back in time to the ancient country of Arabia and hear the voice of the woman called Scheherazade.
My land is ruled by a sultan whose greatest happiness is to hear tales of magic and wonder. Storytellers have come from far and wide to entertain him. When their stories pleased him, they would be richly rewarded. But when they did not, the storyteller would be punished severely. One evening, I went to the palace of the sultan to entertain him, for I know many strange and magic tales. My story pleased him. He called me back the next evening, and the next. For 1,001 nights I told my stories to the sultan. At the end of that time, we had fallen in love, and I am now his wife. Listen, and you shall hear one of these tales, the one I know to be the sultan's favorite.
Once there lived a wicked magician, a rich and powerful man who had everything in the world that he wanted. Everything but a lamp. An old and dented, bent and tarnished lamp. But you must know, as the magician did, that this was no ordinary lamp. He who owned it became in truth its master. And by rubbing the lamp, a genie of gigantic size suddenly appeared who would obey any command, however great or impossible it might be. The wicked magician knew the secret of where the lamp was hidden, but the secret did him no good. To become the owner of the lamp, he had to receive it as a gift from the hands of another. But that person had to be chosen carefully, someone unwise in the ways of the world, someone who would not suspect the magical power of the lamp. After a long search, at last he found a person who he was sure he could bend to his purpose. Aladdin was a poor boy whose father had died, but rather than look for work, Aladdin roamed the streets of the city, idle and lazy, a troublesome burden to his mother. After secretly watching Aladdin for several weeks, the magician approached him and told the boy he was his father's long-lost brother. Upon hearing that Aladdin's father no longer lived, he pretended great distress and insisted on buying many beautiful gifts, which he brought to the poor family. Aladdin's mother, a simple woman, believed his story and was soon pouring her heart out to the evil impostor, telling him what a trial and disappointment Aladdin had been to her. "How very unfortunate," said the magician. "Let me help you. I am a traveling merchant. I have great wealth. My business prospers, but I have no sons to assist me. I would be honored if you would permit Aladdin to join me and learn my trade." Aladdin's mother was overjoyed, and the next morning when the magician announced that he had to leave on a journey, Aladdin went with him. They traveled for several days until they came to a valley between two mountains. The floor of the valley was covered with rocks, and Aladdin saw that an iron ring was embedded in the largest one. "Take hold of the ring and pull up the rock," said the magician. "Below it is where I hide my fortune. Take anything you like, nephew. And, by the way, while you're down there, you'll see an old oil lamp of mine which I'm rather fond of. Would you bring it to me, Aladdin?" Eager to please his uncle, Aladdin grasped the ring and tugged with all his strength until the great rock swung open like a door. Aladdin went down a short flight of stairs. When his eyes had grown accustomed to the darkness, he found himself in, of all places, a garden of fruit trees. The fruit on some of the trees was red, on others green, and blue, and white. On looking at the fruits more closely, Aladdin could see that what he thought was fruit were really precious jewels, rubies, emeralds, sapphires, and diamonds, all sparkling in the dim light. He stuffed his pockets full, and then his shirt, until he could scarcely move. In his excitement, he had completely forgotten the lamp. His burden of wealth was so heavy that he could hardly get up the stairs. "Help me, uncle," he called. "The lamp," commanded the magician. "Give me the lamp." "I'm sorry," said Aladdin. I forgot it." The magician did not believe this truthful answer. "He suspects," he thought wildly. "He suspects the secret of the lamp." In a fit of anger, he slammed the rock shut, leaving Aladdin imprisoned below. Aladdin realized at once that the wicked magician was not his uncle, but he was far more concerned with the problem of escaping from the dark garden. He tried to push the stone away, but the wicked magician had magically sealed it shut. "I must look for another way out," Aladdin said. "But it's so dark." And then he thought of the lamp. He groped through the darkness for several hours until he found it. To his disappointment, the lamp would not light. "It's so old and dirty," he thought. "Perhaps if I clean it." He took a corner of his shirt and rubbed the lamp. Frightened at the appearance of the genie, Aladdin was certain that he would be killed. But the genie, looming high above him, simply awaited his orders. "I wish I was out of here," said Aladdin. "I wish I was home with my mother." And in an instant, he was. His mother was astonished to see Aladdin, his pockets bursting with jewels, and when he blurted out his story, she scarcely believed it. He, too, was still filled with amazement and wonder at what had happened, and still not certain of the power of the lamp. He rubbed it gently. True, then. Aladdin did not know what to ask the genie. Then he remembered that he was very hungry. "Bring us food, please," he said. Suddenly, before them were 35 silver trays piled high with the most delicious foods that either of them had ever seen. With the genie of the lamp at his command, Aladdin could now have anything he wanted: riches, power, fame, anything at all. Once, when he was poor and ragged, he had caught a glimpse of the Sultan's beautiful daughter as she rode through the streets in her carriage. He had loved her secretly ever since, and now she became his bride. They lived in a magnificent palace, and he was the kindest man in all the land, using the power of the lamp to help the poor and sick and troubled. It became a time of contentment. There was only one person who was not happy: the wicked magician. His anger knew no bounds. I must have the lamp! But how? Finally, he thought of a scheme. The magician disguised himself as an old peddler, and with a cart full of lamps went through the streets of the city crying, "New lamps for old! New lamps for old!" He had chosen his time carefully, a day when he was certain that Aladdin would be away from the palace. New lamps for old! New lamps for old! He was outside the palace now. One of the servants, on hearing the peddler's cry, thought to himself, "I will surprise my master. I will replace the old lamp which stands by his bed with a new one. He will be most pleased, and it would give me great joy to please him." The servant ran and got the lamp and gave it to the peddler in exchange for a new one. The magician, trembling with delight, took the lamp and tucked it inside his robes. In great haste, he pushed his cart down the street, nearly colliding with a rider on horseback. He looked up. It was Aladdin, returning early from his journey. The magician had been caught, but no! "Be careful, old man. Watch where you're going," said Aladdin, and rode on. "He didn't recognize me," thought the magician. "What great good fortune!" As he rode along, Aladdin had a feeling that there was something familiar about the old peddler. He had seen him somewhere. Where? It had been a long time ago, when he was still a poor boy, before he had discovered. Then he knew. The magician. A cart full of lamps. The scheme was clear to him. He wheeled his horse around and galloped after the magician, who by now had disappeared. How would he ever find him? Aladdin strained to catch sight of the magician in the crowds. As he did, he saw something glittering far down the street. It was sunlight. Sunlight reflected from a cart full of shiny new lamps. Aladdin urged his horse still faster. The magician had turned a corner and made his way into a dark, narrow alley. Looking around to be sure no one was watching him, he took out the lamp and stood, holding it, an evil smile on his face. He raised his hand to rub the lamp. Just as he did, there was Aladdin. He leaped from his horse, flung himself on the magician, and killed him. The lamp was safe once more. From then on, Aladdin carried the lamp with him wherever he went, and continued to use its magic power to do only good for as long as he lived.